All right, let's move on to some questions and answers. We've heard from them, so let's hear from our respective ministers and officials here today for questions that you may have to us. So I'm going to go straight over to our minister from Namibia.
Thanks very much. I'm Becky Rebecca Kapiti Range, or the Ojo. I'm the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Training and Innovation in Namibia. And I will ask maybe one or two questions because I don't want to discriminate, maybe three. The first one is, I'm going to start with a simple one. Are we going to get this beautiful presentation, especially the PowerPoints, given to us? Or is it assumed we are going to access
Short
them?
answer is yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the softball.
Because they are very beautiful and we need to have them and refer to them. The first intervention I want to make is that in Africa, it still takes a village to raise a child. It hasn't changed. It's amazing how we have developed, but we still use a village to raise a child. And I want to link to your intervention that you said it takes the world to educate a child. And I think the mismatch is not only between skills and whatever is happening. There is a mismatch or lack of consultation of the village in educating the child that is raised by the village. Now, let's take Africa as a village. And you from the global community, Microsoft, Intel, and HP, are trying to educate an African child. If there is lack of consultation, lack of engagement, lack of participation of the village community, it's very difficult for you to raise that child and educate the child that has been raised by a village. So what I'm actually implying is that there's need for very concerted effort from Microsoft, Intel as businesses to take the village business interests into consideration. I think I'm speaking after a very senior sister of mine and Minister of South Africa had spoken. Genuine partnership is very important when you are involved in business transactions. Microsoft is a business, Intel is a business, HP is a business. But because Africa is having the 6 fastest growing economies in the world, Africa is the best buyer of your products. But we're not going to take part in buying the products if only our contribution is at maybe benefiting a software production. What's wrong with Africa, in spite of all its resources, being engaged to get involved in hardware production so that your business is also having a beneficiation value to the village? I think we should think in that direction in the future. That's one. The second one is about Africa being ready. We are ready. In fact, somebody said Africa is the future, Africa is ready, we are all ready, but we want to benefit. Namibia is a very small country. In population, we have only 2.3 million people. It's not necessarily very good for a big business like Microsoft, but they are there. We are doing business with them, and we have been doing business with them. And we bring in solar energy because Namibia is small in population, but in landmass is Germany and France put together. So it's as large as that. We call it the big small country. So I think you should think in the future on how we can use energy, solar energy, to reach out the outskirts areas in some African countries with smaller populations, but where these villages will benefit. Finally, I wish to talk to Freeman book, The World is Flat. I think it is flat indeed. It's amazing. Before they thought it was flat, then they said, no, it's round, but now it's flat. And I think what he's implying in that is that ICT has made the world flat. But I'm very concerned, like the minister, the senior minister from Uganda, our host just spoke, about the richer in ICT get richer, and the poorer in ICT get poorer. I think the gap should be addressed. It's not always Brazil going to Japan, but maybe it's Brazil going to Peru. It's not always Kenya linking to Baltimore, but maybe Kenya to Uganda. It's not always the school that is going to display a very expert way of dealing with computers, which I don't necessarily have. But is that how that village school linked to the next village school? I think you as businesses should work towards that. It seems it's like one school is very privileged, a village school, is having connection with Microsoft in Baltimore, or Intel, or wherever. But the next village is just so envious of it. And they can't have access to the highways that made the world flat. It's only the people with Porsche and Hammers that are applying the roads and the highways created by SCT. The people with bicycle are not getting access to that. Thank you.
So can I go ahead and answer that? Can we answer that now? Okay, great. So first of all, thank you for your words. And I was the one who talked about it takes the world to educate a child. We recognize at Intel that education is fundamentally local. What I mean bringing elements of the world are the best known practices that then can be localized. In every instance that we have worked around implementation of technology in the classroom, we always, by definition, work with a local company. When I gave my example of Portugal, the benefits that they derived from the project in working with Microsoft and HP and ourselves were not just what happened in the classroom, but what happened to those parents that had new opportunities also to participate in this big movement. So I totally agree with you. And I think that our best known methods to bring in technology into a classroom is to look at the broader community. You may have seen under Africa is Ready, I had 3 important words. I have seen, and I just came from Rwanda where I saw this very, very brightly. Committed leaders, not cheerleaders, you're saying, hey, yay, go get it. No, committed leaders. I saw collaboration with industry, and I saw, most importantly, a community of parents and teachers, back to your village example, that wanted this. Now, that's what I talk about being ready, because there's many countries that were ready, but were not committed to engage and make sure that the teacher professional development happens, not just that devices come into the classroom. So I agree with you, and in the way that we have worked, Microsoft, HP, and Intel, we recognize that this opportunity, as said by our colleague from Microsoft, is one of lifelong opportunity, not just of an individual project, but a program around national competitiveness. So I'll turn it over to Dave if he wants to comment on that.
Oh, thank you very much, Brian, and thank you very much for your very insightful question and questions. 3 words to dovetail from Brian: leadership is very important. It has to start from the top, and true, strong leadership we see transcend into some very successful education ecosystems. Partnership. Not only partnership at an industry level, as you see up here on the stage, but public-private partnership is very important to establishing and enabling successful education technology ecosystems. And innovation. Innovation is essential. Innovation here astounds me. Mobile payments is led by Africa. I'm still in the dark ages, and I use plastic back in the States. How can we take this innovation and skip generations in moving forward and positioning Africa as a global software service capability to really compete on this level itself? That innovation is here today, that foundation is here today, and we look forward to partnering with you to develop that.
Very briefly, 2 thoughts to your questions, and Namibia is actually the perfect case for it. Number 1, in Namibia, a technology like TV White Spaces can connect those communities to the world. Frank Bacosta is there at the very end, one of my colleagues waving his hand. He can share more information with you on how to make that happen. If that connectivity which is easy to deploy and ubiquitous, whatever, can and should enable a community, should enable your village. So one of the things that we are, and I think Dave, you said it as well, we don't want technology locked away in the school. We want it to go out then into the families. And so if that's the right device, the students, the teachers can bring it into the community. The TV white spaces would provide connectivity in community. And then we as Microsoft on Office 365, we have something called Student Advantage. Just because the teachers are licensed to have the technology, the student can take the software into their families and into their villages and share it with 5 others. So there's clearly the understanding that it does take a village. Within our capabilities, we can help you to get there.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry I came a bit late, and I understand my senior colleague has already spoken. So just in case I will repeat what she said, please then feel offended. My name is Tiko Dritogwa, and I'm a professor of electrical engineering and also computer engineering. Before I joined her, I was teaching. Now, when I looked through some of those slides, I saw a statement that said, I think the world is moving from a manufacturing economy to, I think, knowledge economy. Speaking from Uganda, I felt saddened, very saddened, because a lot of the stuff which was presented looked as if I was in an MBA class, you know, in Europe. Right now, even when we want to engage our parents through these children who will be introduced to these technologies and so forth, those homes are not ready for those kids to be able to involve the parents. In our situation, and let me talk about Uganda, in our situation, I would believe that a more appropriate approach would be for us to engage with HP, with Intel, with Microsoft, and provide platforms here that the kids can use to access this wonderful knowledge and so forth, and raise these kids by themselves, maybe through the teachers and so forth. Because I'm sure when I go to a village, or when she comes to my village, okay, my son, who happens to be a software electrical engineer now, will not be able to speak to the grandma, the uncle, in the language that we will have acquired. And through that route, I do not see this technology helping us to move forwards. I would have loved to see a situation where you offer me the opportunity to have a policy in Uganda here that every child should have a laptop or that $100 device. And it is at that point that we should be entering this society in order to make this society of ours move forwards. Now, simply accessing the knowledge so that we move away maybe from manufacturing and so forth, to me, I think is insufficient. I don't know what my colleagues from the other parts of Africa say, but I think I would have loved to move out of here, go to Parliament, that we want a policy tomorrow that every child should have that small device, okay? And it will cost $100 and about 18 million of them. I think that would be a market for each one of you. Can we move in that direction? I'm saying this because my sister from South Africa acted as a devil's advocate, I think was making exactly the same thing. If you come and manufacture those here, I think the others who didn't have the opportunity also to go there would be able to have some employment. And by connections, the others will be employed. Can we look at that proposition as well?
Okay, maybe. Thank you, Minister. Again, very thought-provoking question, and so it's hard to answer quickly, but let me start trying to focus on 2 points. Number one is, when you present in a 20-minute presentation, you have to paint with a very broad brush. So when I talked about moving from a manufacturing industry to an information industry, of course we will continue to manufacture in the future as well. We will produce laptops, we will produce computers, TV screens, washing machines, you name it. The way we will produce them will dramatically change, and hence, because it's changing, the skills to be are needed to be in the manufacturing industry are dramatically changing as well. So I didn't want to make the statement throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There will be, in fact, we could have a separate discussion about what 3D printing might mean for the African continent, a little bit of a longer discussion. The other challenge that you put to us, we want every student, every child to have access to technology, and I'll allow my colleagues that are a little bit more versatile in hardware to talk a little bit more about that. What I'd like to add, though, is one thing that is important to understand. Even if we give a device to every student, the parents are still without devices, or at least they get access to them. So equally important on the devices is what I call a digital identity for every child and adult. Because the world that we live in nowadays, through cloud computing, and it's not just Microsoft making that argument, allows us to access that capability through any device that you might get hold of. At school, at work, at an internet cafe, or wherever you are. So it's not only the device question that we'll get an additional answer on, it's the capability to make computing available through digital identities, which is relevant for students, for teachers, and every adult in the country as well.
Thank you very much for your question. Short answer is HP is willing to engage in a conversation with regards to building lifelong sustainable education ecosystems. And what does that enable? That enables real lifelong learning for all stakeholders involved. And so from a goals and objectives perspective, setting policy, that's where we'd want to engage with first in terms of establishing how that model may play out moving forward. To capitalize on some of the comments my colleague up here made, creating lifelong learners is the intense focus of our students today, but we cannot overlook the adults, the parents, the village that also supports those students. Just as an example, we deployed devices to students in India. We also coordinated that with online learning for adults to get their accreditation through an online university. That allows us to extend the value of the investment not only to the students themselves, but also to the environment that's supporting those students to enable that lifelong learning to happen regardless of which age you're at.
Thank you. I want to thank you also for the question, and I want to raise it one. I have my colleague from Uganda, Alex, out there. I think that we should build factories in the classroom. I think that we need to bring the building blocks to build the entrepreneurship early on. The ultimate factory will not be the HP factory, with all due respect. It's really, or the Microsoft factory. It's what together we can build so your children are the makers, the creators of what's going to happen here in Uganda and take that to the next level. So to build a single factory, it's not about that. It's to provide that capability to the children, to the teachers in the classroom. And I'm with you with that, and I'm going to challenge my colleague from Uganda, Alex, to help me in that process that we can work together to build those types of factories, software factories, if you will, in the classroom.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandra. I am from Mozambique, and I'm National Director for Higher Education from the Ministry of Science and Technology, Higher Education and Professional Education. Thank you very much for your presentations. And I have one question for you. In fact, I have three, but the most important is this one. You know, Mozambique is a country in sub-Saharan Africa with approximately 25 million people. And 40% of these people are illiterate. And we are really facing the challenge to eradicate illiteracy in our country. And my question to you is, how can you help our government to eradicate illiteracy in our country? Through technology, through computer technology, to your HP, Intel, and Microsoft. What can you do to help our governments to eradicate illiteracy? The second question is more in my area, to see how can your companies, with the international reference in helping our governments, increasing the contribution of our sector from 70%, as we could see here in one of your slides, to improve our contribution in retention our teachers in the universities. Because teachers of engineering, they go very fast to those big companies because their salaries are very, very low in the universities. So I would like to see what is your role in helping our governments to develop methodologies to retain our teachers in our universities. And the last one is join the honorable ministers from Namibia and South Africa when they talk about having our computers in our countries. I would like to see someone, maybe one day, something called, this computer is made in Mozambique, not only made in China. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for the question, and I'll take a couple of those, and my colleagues can help me with that. First and foremost, in terms of the literacy issues, and I think we heard it from Microsoft, and we heard it very clearly also from HP, the teachers play a fundamental role in the whole education process. And what we're moving towards are new educational models that actually are much more inclusive. So what we would do at Intel is, first of all, engage with you around your program, because all of these programs are your programs, and we play a small part. But what I learned in Rwanda and other places that are now moving forward with velocity is that there's a master plan that identifies a number of deliverables. We can help in that process by sharing, and I think you should be collaborating amongst yourselves on those types of planning processes, and then we can help and contribute. We can contribute with that in terms of being able to provide knowledge around the right curricula, the teacher professional development, and the things that will calibrate the process. As it relates to your last point of having a device made in your country, I would rather see also a device that was designed in your country, because that's the level of intellectual property, that's the level of engineering, that's the ultimate where you are not just building, but you are designing. You are not just consuming, but you are creating. And I think that there's the opportunity, relates back to the factories in the schools, and I want to go with that one, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Thanks, Brian. And thank you very much for your question. Let me address the first question from the perspective of how HP would engage. HP, again, is a partner to help you achieve your objectives overall. And given our experience from working with ministries around the world, we've developed a set of heuristics that we can bring in that help provide perspective on policy, on readiness, on deployment, on sustainability, the 4 key vectors on successful education transformation programs. We extend this with capabilities now, with tools that will allow ministers to make decisions on a current, past, and future basis with real data itself. So we use technology to allow decision-making to happen in countries to invest and transform educational ecosystems themselves. From that perspective, I want to just extend upon Brian's not only software from investing in the country itself, I would like to see the complete solution made in Mozambique for the complete solution, hardware, design, software, content, teacher professional development, learning management systems, student information systems, and exporting that not only to Africa, but to the rest of the world itself. Thank you.
And quickly, in addition, we seem to be in alignment. We have to enable you to design and produce locally. The last example that comes to my mind is how we work with a local company in Rwanda to actually produce the computers we need for the school project there. My colleague Warren here can tell you a little bit more how we went about that. Let me tackle a question that you had that I think hasn't been tapped upon yet, is the teacher retention. I don't believe that any of us can help you with is what teachers get paid versus the industry. But what we do know is one of the biggest factors of job satisfaction is not pay. It is how happy you are with your position and your job and your role. Obviously, pay plays an important role as well, but it's also the satisfaction with your role. So one of the things we hope that we can contribute is by making that role more attractive, making it forward-looking, making it impactful, whatever, we add to the job satisfaction of teachers as well.
I will talk in Portuguese, please, if you have translation. Eu gostaria de dizer que segui atentamente as intervenções dos três que falaram e quero, por isso, agradecer sinceramente as vossas intervenções e aquilo que nós aprendemos com todas elas. Gostaria de dizer que eu acredito no poder transformacional da educação, na sua força de transformar o homem para ajudar a sociedade, que ajuda o país e no mundo cada vez melhor. Eu acredito também no compromisso, no comprometimento e no engajamento que todos nós, líderes e profissionais da educação, temos nesta força e na crença que a educação tem para transformar a sociedade. No entanto, também acredito que este desafio de da educação transformar a sociedade não pode ser encarado se nós não encararmos outros desafios igualmente importantes, inadiáveis e me parece que indispensáveis, nomeadamente a criação de infraestruturas, o desafio de uma melhor distribuição de água e energia nas nossas sociedades, o desafio do saneamento básico, o desafio do desemprego jovem, que é muitas vezes resultante de sistemas educativos nossos estruturados de maneira a promoverem e a estimularem fileiras de letras, em detrimento das fileiras das ciências e das tecnologias. Todos esses desafios acontecem nos nossos países num momento crítico, em que caem os principais produtos de exportação, à volta dos quais estão baseadas as nossas economias, das quais vêm receitas fiscais para financiar a nossa educação e, portanto, parece que nos encontramos numa encruzilhada difícil em que, além de termos urgente necessidade de utilizar inteligentemente os nossos parcos recursos, também temos urgente necessidade de contar com a vossa parceria colaborativa, construtiva, para que, em estreita colaboração com as empresas de base tecnológica dos nossos países, que elas existem, possam permitir um desenvolvimento mais rápido dos nossos países, promoção do emprego jovem, mas, sobretudo, a endogeneização do desenvolvimento que nós precisamos e que contamos, por isso, com a vossa colaboração. Eu gostaria era de saber, com esta contextualização, em que medida é que as empresas como a HP, a Intel e a Microsoft têm alguma intervenção ou não ao nível estratégico do desenvolvimento e não ao nível operacional e tático, que permita fazer com que os nossos países e os sistemas educativos em particular possam estruturar as suas políticas e os seus planos tecnológicos de maneira a impactar positivamente sobre a qualidade da educação, a aprendizagem dos alunos e uma qualidade da educação que sirva efetivamente para o desenvolvimento dos nossos países. Muito obrigado.
I'll do a summary of it. Most of it was a comment. He just ended up asking the question. So I'll start by saying that he started by talking about the transformational power of computing and stating that it is indispensable that you address infrastructural needs, especially in the areas of energy, water, and basic sanitation, as well as youth employment. That we need to promote and find a way to stimulate the learning of science and technology, because our economies are producing basic products that are in turn which are in turn exported, and then that is how we get to live. So we need an intelligent management of resources. Our collaboration with you should be able to address these issues. And going on to the question at the very end, his question was, how can HP, Intel, and Microsoft come up with a strategy, or do you already have a strategy that can be aligned with the national educational system policy in order to address these three issues: water, sanitation, and especially youth employment, at the very end?
Thank you very much for that question. And I think the UN also agrees with you with regards to prioritizing the Sustainable Development Goals. They also include addressing health, clean water, in addition to providing quality learning to our students today. So from that perspective, we see human capital development at a nation-state level to address the fundamental needs of any individual citizen. That's safety, security, education, and health and well-being. And as we think about how we want to develop human capital, it's a function of how we want to establish a joint partnership around establishing the policy to enabling that to happen. And in doing so, HP, again, is a technology partner that has a perspective and understanding of the key trends in technology. And we look forward to working with you to partnering on how we translate that technology into delivering meaningful outcomes for what your goals are specifically in the country itself.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I would give the example of our combined work in Portugal, where a project that initially was a project about targeting access into the schools became a project about engaging at a national competitiveness level. So, for example, in many of these projects that we work with, and we could do the same in Angola, it's not just about what's happening in the classroom, but a broader project that has other ministries. For example, in Portugal, it was the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Innovation, and the Ministry of Education coming together around a project of national competitiveness that had to deal very specifically with addressing key infrastructure areas. So these projects are not in isolation. These projects require a master plan that really identifies all the constituencies that have to come together. And then we come in and help either by facilitating a workshop to engage in a broader conversation that can identify steps that we can help to take this forward in a very accelerated way. So again, I would say that our experience is to work very holistically in these education projects, and we believe that this type of opportunity to bring in technology to the classroom, it's really a program around national competitiveness and innovation that we could and very easily want to participate in with you.
Honourable Minister, the question that you are asking are indeed the burning issues. Don't just look at the education system, cast a wider net. And I think we all feel responsibility to participate. As Microsoft, I think I started explaining what we do when it comes to youth employability, and there are more things we're doing. So let me address the other ones. we have another program under the For Africa banner called the Innovation Program, where we deliberately looking for young startup companies and help them to grow, especially startups that solve African problems. So for example, we could talk to you about a company called Agin, which is connecting farmers through very smart cloud-based solutions software that was created in Africa, and if I remember correctly, by now it's reaching 150,000 farmers in 3 or 4 countries. We could talk to you about a startup in Nigeria that has built a health solution that they are quickly deploying into different hospitals, especially rural hospitals, to make sure that patients find the right place, they don't have to be tested over and over again, and so forth. So I think there are mechanisms that we can provide, and the For Africa initiative within Microsoft is particularly focused on that, to help solve problems in the community at large, and health and agriculture and sanitation come to mind through the means of technology, but not by importing it, but creating it locally.
Thank you very much. It's perhaps somewhat of a comment, and I must say I think the presenters have begun to respond to a number of the issues that were of concern to me earlier. I do think that in the presentations that were made, there were a number of gaps that led to some, I think, dissonance in understanding between ourselves as policymakers and yourselves as the technology solution companies. Of course, basic education remains an important imperative for us as developing countries, and it is an area that we have to respond to. But youth empowerment is a critical area, and particularly employment of young people. Business formation is absolutely critical to growing our economies. Value addition and beneficiation in Africa is an imperative. Increasing postgraduate education, particularly in the engineering, mathematics, and other scarce domains, is absolutely important. And of course, ensuring that we have sufficient training and contribution to innovation, and thus the building of an innovation ecosystem is critical. So in this audience, yes, you have education ministers, you have communication ministers, but you have ministers of science and technology as well. And all of us as members of government are responsible for that complex set of imperatives. And that's what we would want to see addressed in presentations that you make. My concern at the earlier point was that the problems were clearly identified, but the solutions spoken to referred to the basic education domain and didn't speak to what you've addressed a moment ago, startups, enhancing productivity, responding to a range of socioeconomic problems. And I really would encourage that in future, when you speak of partnerships, you've got to address that broad range of imperatives that we as government are charged to respond to. We value the collaboration and partnerships and obviously want to see them continue. But if young people continue to have no hope, continue to be unemployed, if we continue to merely be a place where technology is imported to or exported to, we have a problem with that characterization of ourselves. So it is the shift in how we stand in comparison to the rest of the world that we're really keen to see, and that we would like you to incorporate into the partnership deliberations you have with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that very, very insightful comment, and I'll just respond with a quick answer here. From an HP perspective, we look forward to working with experts like you to inform how we develop and set our strategy itself. So I look forward to continuing to engage in the dialogue to address the needs that you address locally, on the continent, and globally as well. We only have a set number of time on here, so as we look through extending the next 3 days, HP, Intel, and Microsoft all have a treasure trove of technology, of content, and capabilities that we would love to bring in partnership with you to scale, whether that's basic education, whether that's postgraduate education, whether that's entrepreneurship. We have the capabilities and skills, for example, through HP Life, to provide entrepreneurship, business-driven, postgraduate education to those students who are looking to maneuver in that path and build innovation in country, on the continent, and over the globe itself.
Yeah, first of all, I would want to thank you for your feedback. I think it's right on. And I think our discussion now needs to be, a common theme I've heard here is around local capacity building. How do we not just bring in great technology that can engage and empower your teachers, but how can we provide together a foundation for that capacity and that capability to be very much local? I guess it goes back to the local village theme right, very directly. So I take that as excellent feedback, and I also take that as an opportunity for us to sit down and maybe engage in a longer conversation about what are the right steps that we can take together to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister, we obviously tried to paint a broader picture than just education, but we didn't fully succeed, it's clear. John, I hear a bit of a plead for more time next time, I'm not sure. Adding small puzzle pieces to what we did, and we try to do that now in our answers, I add one more from For Africa. One of our promises under the For Africa initiative is to onboard 1 million SMEs, small and medium enterprises, to a connected online world, and we are well on the way. So we can talk to you about is how we're trying to cast a much broader net in really enabling those investments into human capital to translate into wealth creation through startups and entrepreneurship. Absolutely, and we need to paint a broader picture.
My name is Sepe Ndlovu from South Africa, the Gauteng Department of Education. We had quite a number of presentations that spoke to learners, particularly in the mainstream schooling. I just wish to request that if you can share just the highlights of your model in deploying ICTs for teaching and learning in schools, particularly for special schools where learners got some disability. That will be one. Secondly, my ministers have already spoken about the local manufacturing of ICT tools in local countries. What I would like you to share with us, your short term, I'm saying a short term because with an understanding that as we go on, we'll then have that local manufacturing. If you can share with us your short-term model in terms, your short-term cost model for the deployment for ICTs in schools. Because one thing that we want to avoid, we don't necessarily, let me put it this way, it's an intention of every government, as it has been said, to provide ICTs for teaching and learning. But equally so, we also don't necessarily want to make education an elite symbol or an elite status in any community. How then do we help us to bridge the gap between those who have and those who don't necessarily have? So your response in your cost model, I would appreciate if you can also clarify or highlight in that particular area.
Those are very important and broad questions, so I'll try a short answer on both sides. Number one is when it comes to children with special needs, I think technology is particularly well suited, especially today's technology, to make dramatic differences. And I would encourage anybody that's interested to actually see us afterwards, because the answer will be too long. But for example, I can tell you our technology nowadays is able to accommodate almost any impairment, visual impairment, hearing impairment, driving your computer through touch. There are so many different solutions by now, and all of them extremely almost cost neutral. Number two, the cost model, a generic answer is very, very difficult to make, right? Because the scenarios can be so different. On the software side, one of the things that Microsoft has made as a decision is we believe that education is an area where we need to invest in for the outcome that we all desire. So there are different models. There is a SKU that we have, an audible SKU, where you can basically get the basic functionality or everything I described for schools for free. There's another model, I briefly mentioned it, called Student Advantage. If you just license your teachers, then every student, regardless of how many, and their families benefit and so forth. So it's a little bit hard to make a generic answer, but at least the answer from a Microsoft perspective is we know that education has a very special need when it comes to budgeting, and we're trying to accommodate it in a variety of ways.
Thank you for those two very insightful questions again, and just to extend upon some of the dialogue that we've just articulated. Technology is an exciting time to provide cost-effective measures to really address students with special needs, whether it's touch, audio, visual. We've got devices that can accommodate individual needs in groups and learning, collaboration, whether it's input by audio, receiving via audio, whether it's touch, multiple form factors. Each of these provides an exciting opportunity to address the unique needs of students with special needs. No one student is the same way, and how could we partner together to provide what the unique solution is for that student overall? Both HP, Intel, and Microsoft all have a hand in driving that technology to providing those specific solutions for students with special needs themselves overall. To address your second question, our short or near-term solution is to really partner with you as experts from the industry to understand where we can help support you scale your objectives with the use of a technology itself. How can we create the effective policy and readiness models to support successful deployments of ICT into education itself, ranging from the device all the way to teacher development and teacher engagement itself. Those are critical components that we look to really focus on here in the short term to address those immediate needs of implementing ICT into education. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And this is a topic near and dear to our heart at Intel. We really do believe that technology can play a big role, especially around the area of special needs. Everything from the thousands of schools that have implemented technology to help those children, to the singular work that we've done around the needs of Stephen Hawkins with his need to use technology to communicate to the world. So it's a topic that's very near and dear because we really believe that technology can make an impact. And it's not just in the cities, but I have examples from, as I mentioned, in Bolivia, where small schools where they have children with special needs that want and need to participate, technology affords them that gateway. As it relates to what we can bring, we have methodologies that are very much can be localized in terms of working around teacher professional development, understanding the ICT infrastructure that needs to be available, and working with a local ecosystem. So our contribution, if you look at the hundreds of projects that have been done, is the ability to engage and ignite a local ecosystem around education and technologies for learning and also methods for learning. So we would love to engage with you on that also.
Thank you very much. My name is Elizabeth Majong from the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation, Cameroon. I want to thank the presenters, but we're a bit worried here. We know we are talking about the entry level, but there are a set of students who are really creative, inventive, and we want to just find out, with your companies, how can you zero in to strengthen, the skills and talents of these children who, they feel like, left behind when a teacher comes in, they're already way ahead, Genius, how do you deal with the children? Is there special software, any special software that you can deal with them? And my ministry, the Ministry of Scientific Research, deals with, the encouraging, talents of the youth, talent of young entrepreneurs. And I must tell you, we need, people like you. How can you come in, to help somebody who has already, got open your computer, put it aside, and trying to pieces it again, You understand? Because we have those talents in Africa. You know, just like we are on the consuming end, but we are also creative. But we need people like you. How can we overcome that? During your presentations, you know, it was a bed of roses. Everything is sweet, sweet, sweet. There are no challenges. There are no difficulties in terms of this transformation in education. Please, can you tell us, because the governments want to deal with you, they'd like to know what are the potholes, what are the pit holes, how can we, fill them by using technology? You see, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. And I think, as we know, solving any of these problems, which are enormous in this room, there is no one silver bullet. Technology is an enabler to addressing those very macro level questions themselves. And as a technology leader in the industry, we look forward to partnering with you to develop what those broad-based solutions are looking like. To use an example that I had presented earlier about Ecuador itself, teacher training was essential in empowering the teachers to become comfortable with technology first. That was a substantial program where you not only had to come in, understand what the curriculum was going to be, how you were going to implement technology, but enabling over 20 hours of individual and teacher-driven professional development in advance, providing online tools for them to follow up and, of course, scale and ask additional questions moving forward, using online, massive open online courses to then continue the development beyond the initial training itself to create a sustainable model moving forward. So it is not just one piece of technology, it is not just one solution, but it is an ecosystem that we needed to partner with in order to really empower the teachers in the country of Ecuador, for example, in order to make them feel comfortable and enable them to teach effectively with technology in the classroom itself.
I hope we didn't give the impression that we believe everything is easy, there are no challenges. On the contrary, we know there's a lot of challenge to work through. I think we are united in the belief that best practices exist and that we're making progress on solving those challenges. But we didn't want to give the impression that everything is already easy. As far as especially motivated, gifted, innovative students are concerned, again, because of technology and personalized instruction, and combining self-study with a teacher that acts more like a coach and curator. It is fabulous in what can be accomplished today. I will be so bold to actually use a family example. For family reasons that shall not be mentioned, my son ended up being the only 12th grader in a now US school coming back from South Africa, in a high school being a Montessori school. So the teacher had to accommodate his 12th grade's instruction while taking care of 11th and 10th graders. And she was able to do that because it was relatively easy to keep him engaged with a very different curriculum and set of things that he needed to show and demonstrate. Technology allowed her to manage all that within one classroom environment. So I think we are united in knowing that teachers get a new set of things. So whether it's kids with special needs that might be a little bit slower, or kids that are racing ahead, technology makes the job of the teacher easier.
Yeah, so I'll address two of the ones that you brought up very quickly. One of them was a lot of the children that I've learned from teachers that are most disruptive are the children that get the material right away. And then they start to say, to talk and engage the other students as they're learning. With technology now, and the content delivery can be done in a way that's much more adaptive to that child and challenges that particular child. It kind of zones in and personalizes the experience for that child so that child can move faster. Or a child that's not getting the information in the first time that they can go through the process of re-engaging with the content. So there are new, exciting methods that can be implemented through technology that I think address that. On your last point, in terms of the challenges, there are many, right? And the one thing that you need to know, that you're not late to the game. Everybody's still at the early stage of the beginning of the beginning. There's no country that I can point to you, and I visited 97 of them, that I have seen that said, wow, these teams or these folks have it all dialed in and here's the recipe. There is no such country. For every success, there's probably 2 or 3 failures that happen. But I'll leave you with this quote from Argentina. The lady that was in charge of the program in Argentina, she said to me one day, this is a difficult project because for every step we take, there's 3 people that think that we're either too fast or too slow. There are teachers that say, you're not giving me enough, or now you're giving me too much work. But in all of it, she said, the most important thing is to do it. The biggest risk that they felt in Argentina was to do nothing. That was the biggest risk. Even if they would fail, they would learn from that failure and eventually calibrate where they were better off. Did they meet all their expectations? Probably not. But they took that first step. So not only do you need the collaboration with industry, the commitment from government, and the community of parents and teachers, we all need that courage to be ready to fail. Because the thing that is at risk is the future of our children if we do not take these steps. And we will work with you so you can learn from that failure and those successes so you can make it exactly what you need it to be in your country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.